Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us at SSUC, Southminster Steinhauer United Church, where we are spiritual seekers, united in community, gathering on the cusp of spring equinox. In these days when sunlight comes galloping back in our hemisphere, on this day when we mark a full year of having met solely in this online way with one another, where virtual community has been made real by your presence here with us. We're grateful for your presence, whatever your age or stage, whatever your gender identity or sexual orientation, however it is you name your deepest hunger, whatever joys or griefs you carry, whatever enchantment or despair, whatever fears or longings. We hope that as we pray, as we meditate, as we seek wisdom, as we hold stillness with one another, as we explore the geography of the heart, that we will each find refuge, sanctuary, shelter in our innermost being. Joining me here in this space to welcome you today on Pi Day on March 3rd, on the third month, and the 14th day, pi, 3.14, the ratio of the circumference of a circle to the diameter of a circle, an irrational number in an irrational time. We are grateful to be with you on this day. And joining me in welcoming you, my teammate Chris, who's giving voice to the piano today, Janice and Blair, who will lead us in song, Andrea and Brett, who are helping us with all things technical, Pam and Dawn, who are standing in for all of you. We take this moment to pause and consider the land where we are placed, the long story of its formation, its first peoples, those who were first to learn its wisdom, of the soil opening to feed us, trees breathing with us, water finding its course, tides keeping time, mountains rising in beauty with their long conversation with wind and ice and upheaval. We acknowledge that we of the SSUC community who gather in Edmonton and Saskatoon, we live in Treaty 6 traditional territory of Cree and Métis peoples, traveling route and gathering place for so many other First Nations. And together with each of you, wherever you are, in whatever land you call home, whether it's treatied or unceded territory, we gather in this online space with one another as partners who journey toward healing and reconciliation, moving through the woundedness toward white relationship. And as we do each time we gather, we light our candles. I invite you to light the candle in your home with me, with gratitude for the candle shared with us by Joyce Madsen and Claire Woodbury, their at-home candle today. Joining with them and here with us in this space, we light our candles with one another in order to kindle a flame of hope as we honor the light of a new day, putting ourselves in the way of beauty and light, bringing the flame of our longings for love, for peace, for grace, for for light itself. We light our candle as we seek to reflect light in our thoughts, in our words, in our actions. We kindle this flame in our quest for light to shine through us. And so we sing our prayer. As we gather each time with one another, we seek to strengthen our intentions to live in ways in which light can shine through us. So, with one another, in the separateness and sanctuary of where we are sheltering, we offer our prayer with one another. As I live every day, I want to be a channel for peace. May I bring love where there is hatred, and healing where there is hurt, joy where there is sadness, and hope where there is fear. I pray that I may always try to understand and comfort other people, that I may also seek comfort and understanding from them. Wherever possible, may I choose to be a light in the darkness, a help in times of need, a caring, honest friend, and may justice, kindness, and peace flow through my heart forever. Amen. We offer our gratitude to West Hill United Church, to our kindred spirits there, for this, their prayer, which they've shared with us.
I'd like to share with you a story that many of you might already know. Horton Hears a Who by Dr. Seuss. I'm not going to share the whole thing because, yes, it's a little bit lengthy, but also it leaves something for us to follow up on, to finish reading on our own. So I want to start with just the beginning, the first few pages of Horton Hears a Who. On the 15th of May, in the jungle of Newell, in the heat of the day, in the cool of the pool, he was splashing, enjoying the jungle's great joys, when Horton the elephant heard a small noise. So Horton stopped splashing. He looked toward the sound. That's funny, thought Horton. There's no one around. Then he heard it again, just a very faint yelp, as if some tiny person were calling for help. I'll help you, said Horton. But who are you? Where? He looked and he looked. He could see nothing there but a small speck of dust blowing past through the air. I say, murmured Horton, I've never heard tell of a small speck of dust that is able to yell. So you know what I think? Why, I think that there must be someone on top of that small speck of dust, some sort of creature of very small size, too small to be seen by an elephant's eyes. Some poor little person who's shaking with fear that he'll blow in the pool. He has no way to steer. I'll just have to save him, because after all, a person's a person, no matter how small. So gently and using the greatest of care, the elephant stretched his great trunk through the air, and he lifted the dust speck and carried it over and placed it down safe on a very soft clover. Humph, humped a voice. 'Twas a sour kangaroo. And the young kangaroo in her pouch said humph too. Why, that speck is as small as the head of a pin. A person on that? Why, there never has been. Believe me, said Horton, I tell you sincerely. My ears are quite keen and I heard him quite clearly. I know there's a person down there. And what's more? Quite likely there's two, even three, even four. Quite likely a family for all that we know. A family with children just starting to grow. So please, Horton said, as a favor to me, try not to disturb them. Just please let them be. I think you're a fool, laughed the sour kangaroo. And the young kangaroo in her pouch said, me too. You're the biggest blamed fool in the jungle of Newell. And the kangaroos plunged in the cool of the pool. What terrible splashing, the elephant frowned. I can't let my very small persons get drowned. I've got to protect them. I'm bigger than they. So he plucked up the clover and hustled away. Through the high jungle treetops, the news quickly spread. He talks to a dust speck. He's out of his head. Just look at him walk with that speck on that flower. And Horton walked, worrying, almost an hour. Should I put this speck down? Horton thought with alarm. If I do, these small persons may come to great harm. I can't put it down, and I won't after all. A person's a person, no matter how small. Then Horton stopped walking. The speck voice was talking. The voice was so faint he could just barely hear it. Speak up, please, said Horton. He put his ear near it. My friend, came the voice. You're a very fine friend. You've helped all us folks on this dust speck, no end. You've saved all our houses, our ceilings and floors. You've saved all our churches and grocery stores. I chose this story because when we think about ourselves, our friends, our loved ones. When we think of those we've never met, we all can recognize that every one of us, all of us, need safe places. Those are places that we can be ourselves, not be anxious or stressed about our surroundings. We need places that are safe, free from struggle, a place where we can let our guard down, a place where we can simply be and not be worried about survival every second of the day. And sometimes that safe place isn't a place. Sometimes it's a person. A person that we feel safe with, a person who makes room for us, who lets us be ourselves, who protects us from those things that make us anxious and worried, even if for a short time. This story reminds us that we all need that in our lives, and that we can all be that person for someone else. We remember the wise words that a person is a person, no matter how small, and our voices and actions are what make that a safe place for a person in our lives that can provide a space they need to be safe. So let's all be like Horton. Take up the task of being that place and that person for someone who needs it.
I want to share a few excerpts with you this morning from the writings of Terry Tempest Williams in her book, The Open Space of Democracy. In her writing, she speaks of the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, the largest refuge lands in the United States, home to polar bears and grizzly bears and black bears and moose and caribou and wolves and eagles, lynx, and many migrating birds who rely on this land. Previous United States administration was seeking bids for oil and gas leases to drill in this land. These are lands that have long been protected, and a swell of movement among peoples who care about these kinds of sacred spaces, who work to protect these lands. These are the words of Terry Tempest Williams. I've held the dream of visiting the Arctic for 30 years. That the refuge has become a symbol for how we define our national priorities is a testament to its innate power. That it continues to survive, resist, and absorb our own greed and economic tensions year after year is evidence of the force of love that has protected these wildlands for generations. The Arctic is a landscape where migrating birds create blizzards with feathers, where polar bears walk on water, and where white owls circle solitary men and women, reminding them of their limitations. Here, it's not unusual for wolves to walk up to children to hear the words spoken by humans, or to find a piece of stone carved in the shape of a whale. This is not magic, only the nature of a landscape being observed. When I ask my companion and guide, Carol, to describe the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge in one word, she doesn't hesitate. Wholeness, she says. I'm in the back of the boat with her as she steers us to our last camp. Carol, a woman in her 50s, is as fierce and wise and beautiful as the lines that give her face expression. She's a woman who has made her work her passion and has brought her whole family into her explorer's heart. She and her partner Jim run Arctic Treks together. I want to hear a different discussion, she says. I want people to ask, how does it feel to be in this country? What do you remember here that you have otherwise forgotten? Why do we want to destroy or diminish anything that inspires us to live more honestly? In the words of this contemporary poet and writer, may we find wisdom for our living. These are the words of Naomi Shihar. Naomi is a Palestinian-American poet. This is her poem entitled Shoulders. A man crosses the street in rain, stepping gently, looking 2 times north and south, because his son is asleep on his shoulder. No car must splash him. No car drive too near to his shadow. The man carries the world's most precious cargo, but he's not marked. Nowhere does his jacket say, fragile, handle with care. His ears fill up with breathing. He hears the hum of a boy's dream deep inside him. We're not going to be able to live in this world if we're not willing to do what he's doing with one another. The road will only be wide. The rain will never stop falling. We're not going to be able to live in this world if we're not willing to do what he's doing with one another. In the words of this poet, may we find wisdom for our living.
Strength
I suspect many of us have a place to go when we need refuge. As children, those of us who had the luxury of having a room of our own probably took refuge in our room behind a closed door. Others went out behind the barn. Some might have taken refuge in a tree. Others in a fort they built in the woods. In our pre-COVID lives, many took refuge from winter by escaping to a warmer place. Or we took refuge from the city by heading to the lake or going to the mountains. For many of us, there is a place we tend to go when we need to get our bearings again. In our COVID life, we might take refuge in a good book or a mindless movie or an engaging one. We might immerse ourselves in listening to music or making music we love. We might find refuge in a daily routine, even in that oh so familiar walk around those same city blocks. However we find it, we all know something about that need for sanctuary, not just for ourselves, but as Terry Tempest Williams reminded us, of those fragile places, those places of beauty that need protection from private development, lands that need to remain public and protected for all, for the human and the more than human. Places set aside as refuge for migrating species to rest, or vast expanses of land as habitat needed by the more than human to survive and to thrive. We've all known there's much that needs our protection. Heritage sites, parkland, wildlife refuge, bird sanctuaries, national parks, and so on. But wherever we live, and whatever life is, there are times we need spaces that offer us sanctuary, that offer us shelter, refuge from the routine, the responsibilities, the demands, the decisions, the grief of life. There's an old story in our tradition of a character who was experiencing the need for refuge. He was dealing with a kind of burnout. I think I would call it advocate exhaustion. Not entirely unlike COVID fatigue. He was depressed and discouraged. He was unable to see a time, a possibility for any real change that would come to his chaotic world. Elijah was a passionate social critic and a justice advocate in our parlance. A prophet in his language of his ancient Israel context. And his country was led by a weak and narcissistic king and a corrupt and conniving queen. Ahab and Jezebel ruled with a sense of entitlement and with no regard for the needs of their people. They were hugely effective in silencing their critics and manipulating the law to serve their interests, padding their palace with ivory, stealing ancestral lands from subsistence farmers, and fueling war after war with their neighbors in Syria. They surrounded themselves with advisors who told them what they wanted to hear, and they humiliated and hunted down those who opposed them. Perhaps that playbook sounds rather familiar. And Elijah had been opposing their policies until he was bankrupt of all resources and depleted of energy and stressed to the limit and suffering from just a generalized depression and completely captured by the dark side of their situation. And he needed refuge from it all. As the story goes, after 40 days and 40 nights, a heck of a long time of taming his monkey mind by walking through the desert, he comes to a mountain where the story shelters him in a cave. In the sanctuary of sleep, he dreams about a great storm. And when the earth stopped quaking, and the wind dropped, and there was no more fire in the sky, in the stillness after the storm, he heard a voice inviting him to return home, to go back the way he came, but not the way he was. To go back rested, refreshed. To go back with new perspective, new eyes, new sense of purpose, knowing he wasn't the only one who was telling the emperor he had no clothes on. To go back and find the others. To go back and find those who too, in their way, were partners in the same struggle. To go back knowing that Ahab and Jezebel may well be on the throne, but that was not the only reality. For Elijah, the refuge had done its work. In time, he became ready to return to the demands of Damascus and find allies and partners. To meet Elisha, who would carry on the prophetic agitation, standing on Elijah's shoulders long after he was gone. When we're in danger of losing perspective, when we're in danger of losing heart, when we're in danger of losing vision, losing our capacity to care, it's time to find a refuge, to find a place within, a space to lean into, where we can lean into the wisdom of memory, that long, old, deep memory we all carry, in the place or the space that offers us the opportunity to ask, what do I remember here, otherwise forgotten? What is it that I need to remember in order to go on? What memory is it that I need to recover in order to find my way, find my light for the next step? Finding refuge isn't the same thing as finding an escape. Finding refuge doesn't require breathtaking beauty. It's not just about getting it away from it all. It's not just about getting a time out from the constraints and the realities of our lives. Refuge is largely a geography that is found by moving in, not by running away. It's found in the cave within us, when we can get still enough, quiet enough, settled enough to know what we know, to remember what we've otherwise forgotten, to feel life as gift again, to know ourselves as a thread in the web of being, fragile and strong, impermanent, but nonetheless invaluable, living on the shoulders of all that has gone before us, carried on the shoulders of those who have walked before we could, who have walked when we couldn't. And we emerge from our refuge with a capacity to carry what we must on our shoulders once again. We might find refuge in rising before daylight when the house is quiet, watching the light come. We might find refuge by closing our eyes and sitting in that sun, moving deeply within. We might find refuge in headphones infused with music that takes us beyond time. We might find refuge on a park bench, absorbed in the face of a flower, or the song of a bird, or the melt of the snow. We find this geography not by traveling away, but by traveling within. It is always a place within us. It has always been within us. It has never left us. It is the place where we remember what we have otherwise forgotten. I want to take a few moments to share some invitations and announcements with you. I want to invite you to stop in and have a bit of conversation with us immediately after this gathering. You'll find the link on Zoom for a time of coffee and chat. You bring the coffee, we'll all share the chat. There's an opportunity just to drop in for a few minutes or to stay for the whole time. We'll spend about a half an hour on Zoom with one another. A week from this Tuesday topics will continue on March 23rd as we explore environmental matters. You'll see some information in your messenger about some reading that you might do before that if you choose, and also a movie that you might watch. We'll have more details about that next week when we gather. And a request from the leadership of our Kid Spirit, from Daisy and Ariane, inviting you to submit your favorite and easy to make recipe that represents your culture. This will add to the video series they're doing on cultures, and they would welcome it if you would email that to the office email address, which you find on your screen. And we want to celebrate Pi Day today, March 14th, and we want to celebrate the incredible support that you gave us in our online auction, which wrapped up on Thursday. After 188 bids, over 2,900 visits to the auction page, those 23 pies raised over $1,700. So we thank you so much for your support, and half of those proceeds, as you know, are going to support the CHEW organization in downtown Edmonton. And here's just a little bit about CHEW.
So my name is Corey Winus. I am the coordinator for the CHEW Project. The CHEW Project stands for Community Health Empowerment and Wellness. It was a project started 5 years ago to work with a population that's very invisible within the city of Edmonton and area. And these individuals are queer and trans youth from the ages of 14 to 29 that face barriers of like mental health, poverty, homelessness, addiction, just any barriers to having like a healthy, hopeful life. Most of these youth live on the street consistently and face many challenges. In October, we raised a little bit of money to open up a center for the youth, because the youth really wanted a place to call their own. They don't feel safe going to shelters. They don't feel safe going to other places based on things like transphobia, homophobia, racism, those sorts of things. Yeah. And so they wanted a place to call their own. So I found this lovely little spot on Jasper Avenue that we kind of just put together and created a home for these kids to go to. It's not an overnight shelter, but they can come here and they can eat, they can sleep, they can play video games, they can just hang out, do some art. They can do a lot of things that you should be doing and have a chance to do. And it's amazing. These kids go from being very, very unhopeful and not unhappy and just feeling really down to having smiles on their face again. So we're pretty mobile that way, where we can go out and I can find the youth maybe they've been using for a few days. They of course are living in poverty, so they haven't changed, they haven't showered, all those sorts of things. I'm able to bring them back here to the center where they can get some of the basic needs. And it's amazing how even the basic needs, like clean water, a chance to shower, maybe a chance to get clean clothes, clean pair of socks, and have something to eat that's not just a bag of chips, that might be something a little more substantial, how that can make a difference for that individual. And so, I may find them and they may be crying, they may be at the end, they may be talking about ending their life, but the minute they come in here, they feel like they got something again. And that's what hope is. And that's our biggest thing, is creating that hope however we can. Yeah. And it's not like we need millions of dollars to do that. It can be as simple, but it's that hope. And once someone has hope, it's amazing how it can change their life or how it can make things better.
So we have an opportunity to express our solidarity in Pi Day in a public, in an intentional, in an explicit way. And if you didn't have a chance to participate in the fundraiser and would like to donate, your donations are still most welcome, and half of those proceeds will support the Chew Project. We want to thank you for all the ways that you contribute and support us. As you will have seen from the recent annual report that you had a link to in your messenger and is found on our website, we had an amazing year together in 2020, despite not being able to gather together in person. The work of this community continued in remarkable and amazing ways, as did your support for the work of this community. We invite you to read those reports, and if you have any questions, you'll see an email address for the writer of each report. Please feel welcome to direct your questions there. And on Tuesday evening, the board will receive your feedback and will take the necessary actions to approve a budget for 2021. So we thank you for your support. There are many ways to express your financial support, as you see on the screen, and also ways to assist us by volunteering for Food Bank, enabling us to continue that program in the community, and many other ways to express your support, not the least of which is by your presence online with us each time we gather.
Hold on, hold on, hold
There is refuge to be found even in our focus on the flame of our candle. There is a place deep within us of safety and shelter and refuge from the storm, that place where we hold on fast to our love. And that love invites us to be a shelter for one another. And so as we change our light, we give ourselves to those times and places where we can offer shelter to one another, where we can carry one another on our shoulders safely across the street. We go into this time, into this day, into this week, in the geography of refuge, to seek and to give shelter to one another. May we stay safe, may we stay well, until we see one another again. May peace be with us now and always.